What's up, guys? Today we're talking about mortgage refinance explained. Just as simple as that. My name is Mark McDonough, your Sacramento Realtor. This is Matt, the mortgage guy. We're here in beautiful Sacramento, California. Now, here's the thing. We're going to be doing these podcasts, talking a little bit about mortgage, real estate, and everything. So hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. You know you want to because you want to learn about this stuff, especially if you're thinking about buying a house, if you're thinking about refinancing. This is the episode you got to watch. Now, if you're looking for a lender, Matt is the man. If you're looking for a real estate agent to move and groove around Sacramento, you know who I am. Let us go into it. Mortgage refinance explained. This is where I zip and I listen. Let's talk, Matt.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk. And I'd love to have us bat some things back and forth. You tell me questions. I know the questions I get, and I know that right now, especially, we've got a couple different things going that's creating tons of refinance. One, when rates are low, people are always refinancing like crazy. And two, everyone's at home. Everyone's got all this time to garden that they never did before. They've got all this time to do home projects they've never done before. And I get so many calls from people that have refinance questions, and I truly believe they've got more time to sit and think about it, that they're looking at their finances as a whole. The mortgage is a big piece of that. And so I'm getting more calls than I think I would normally get in this low interest environment, because people have time to sit at home and look at it as they should. Call and talk to somebody about it as they should, right? That's what I'm always preaching to people when it comes to refinance is, as long as you talk to somebody you like and trust, it never hurts. And I've got probably 7 out of 10 people that reach out to me where I say it doesn't make sense, and I explain to them why, but I say thank you for reaching out, because you should. People will spend 45 minutes on hold with DirecTV. They'll spend 45 minutes with Comcast trying to lower their internet bill by $10. Shoot, a call to a mortgage professional, you might be saving yourself $200 a month. So to check that just in case is a great idea, as long as, like I said, it's somebody who you like and trust. Because trust me, Mark, I have looked at loan estimates. I've had people say, hey, I just want to get a second opinion. Take a look at this. And it's Quicken Loans or their current servicer, where they've talked to somebody at a call center who's trying to sell them on a refinance that makes no financial sense at all. And that's the thing. That's probably one of the things we should talk about, is that refinance is not always good. It's not always a good idea. And a bunch of my buddies in the mortgage world who really care about business long term know how to give good advice. We know good from bad. But unfortunately, and probably in these times more than any other times, when people are a little bit on edge and might be fearful of finances, they might be more susceptible to the mortgage companies that are just thinking to themselves, hey, it's a good time. It's a good time to market, good time to hook some clients. Because the truth of the matter is mortgage companies get paid. When refinances get done, mortgage companies get paid. Mortgage loan officers get paid. And so if you're dealing with people that are unethical, they might talk you into it. And I've seen time and time again. Sometimes I'm too late, and it breaks my heart, where somebody shows me a loan where, they've paid $11,000 in fees to get into a loan that saves them $20 a month. And unfortunately, not everyone can see that, that 11,000 divided by 20, 550 months is a long time. That's never going to break even. That loan's never going to make sense. But, it's out there. So we can take this any direction you want. I can talk about, but I guess I'd love to hear from you on what questions you have. Because if you've got questions about stuff you don't understand, it's probably something that other people have questions about.
Well, the main thing is, we were thinking about topics tonight, and it was because, it's a good thing to explain, mortgage refinance explained is something that I get hit on a lot, because here's the thing right now. A lot of lenders are seeing more refinance requests right now than new purchase requests. It's just the way the market is at this point. So you see a lot of people and a lot of big companies who are used to processing so many loans, that these kind of low-hanging fruit is sitting there right now. They're just grabbing a lot of the refinance business. So a lot of my clients right now are seeing the news and saying oh my God, look, interest rates are so much lower than they were when I purchased. What should I do it or should I not? And of course, my main thing, whenever I talk to someone, I'm like, give Matt a call. I mean, he'll tell you what's going on. And I think you're right about the trust factor, but it's such a little bit of like a dangling little carrot out there, because you're hearing your neighbor, oh, I just refinanced and I'm saving like a couple $100s a month. Everyone assumes that it's just that easy. Hey, hey, let's just do it. And like you said, a lot of people out there are taking advantage of the situation. So for me, I kind of wanted to, let's take the good and let's take the bad. Okay. So let's say right now someone is out there and they're paying like, let's say 4.5. Okay. And right now they qualify for something like 3.5. What are we looking at as far as savings? I mean, what factors do you have to put into play and all that kind of stuff?
Okay. Yeah. And I think this is where to be quite honest and not patting myself on the back, I shine. I've always been a math nerd and I enjoy doing stuff like this, where from the perspective of the person who's got the mortgage, the client of mine coming to me, I'm trying to dig in and say, okay, rates are lower, great, but what are your goals? And let's say that client has been in that loan for 3 years. And so they've got 27 years left. They're a 4.5% interest rate. They've got great credit. I could get them, you said 3.5, I could probably do it lower than that, probably 3.25. And so the conversation starts to become, what are your goals? Are you trying to get the lowest payment possible because you've got, a kid going to Jesuit and you've got to pay $17,000 a year in tuition? Are you trying to pay it off sooner? Maybe you want to pay it off in 20 years because you're 42 and you'd love to be mortgage free at 62 when you're going to retire. And so that factors into it, because if you think about 1% less in interest and say you owe 400,000, then you're saving $4,000 a year in interest. So it's going to pencil no matter what you do with the mortgage. But it makes sense to kind of talk through and figure out, what are your goals? What can we do? Because that specific scenario, what people generally ask me is, hey, Matt, I trust you. And if you tell me this makes sense, I believe you, but what should I be looking for? What to you tells you that it makes sense? Because people want to justify it in their own minds. Like, hey, this is something. And what I've done on a lot of refinances, just to help people understand, like, okay, I made a good decision. This was a refinance that makes sense. Because a lot of times, folks do whatever they do. They've got a job that has nothing to do with finance. And really this stuff is all Japanese to them. So it's my job to just make it simple, explain it. And I tell them, first and foremost, nothing's free in life. So all these ads that say no cost refinance or whatnot, it's just not true. If I wanted to give that same client a 3.625 and a lender credit of $3,500 that covered all the costs, then I could call it a no cost refi. But okay, the cost is in the rate, because I gave them 3,625 instead of 3.25. They're going to pay $44 extra per month instead of that 3,500 now. And so it's really one or the other, right? It's okay, baked in and you're paying for it on the rate, or you're paying for it because, most lenders are going to charge somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. They're going to call it admin fee. They're going to call it underwriting fee. They'll call it underwriting and processing, whatever they call it. Lenders fees, I've seen them as high as $1,800. I've seen some lenders do $795 or $895. As a broker, I get to shop them all. And a lot of lenders I use just have a flat fee of like $10.55. So that's the lender side. The title company, who's going to have an escrow fee, they're going to have a recording fee, they're going to have a few fees based on loan size. That's probably $1,200. And then half of the refinances I'm doing need an appraisal. Half of them don't. So if you need an appraisal, it's probably $475 on average. And you close halfway through the month, you're paying the last half of interest. You're paying a notary fee. If we're going to use really rough figures, I would say the average refinance costs somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500. And okay, an important question that people ask is, do I have to pay that out of pocket? I don't have $3,500. No, you don't have to pay it out of pocket. It rolls into the new loan, but I would never try to tell somebody this is not costing you. It cost you something, right? What you need to
Totally,
look at,
totally.
like, and let's use your scenario. Let's look at that scenario. Now what we want to look at is, we know the cost. Now what's the benefit? And does the benefit outweigh the cost? In that scenario where, let's say we're going 4.5 to 3.25, it would be sensational for me to say. The funny part is, I was looking at scenarios at 4.5% earlier, and then you just made up 4.5%. We didn't have this plan, but let's say somebody's got 27 years left on a 400, and they've got $400,000 left on their balance. They're going to pay over the next 27 years at 4.5, $291,000 in interest. If we lowered their rate to 3.25, they're going to save. I wrote down 226, so 65,000 in interest saved by going down. But here's the thing, Mark. To tell somebody, hey, it's only costing you 3,000, I'm going to save you 65. It's kind of unfair for me to assume they're going to stay in that loan for 30 years, because people just don't. So
Right.
what I generally do is say, hey, let's look at a 5-year snapshot. You plan on staying in this house, and if you're moving in a year, don't ever refinance, because it's hardly ever going to pencil. If you're unsure, then that's another conversation. But if you're like, hey, I'm selling X May, I know I am, I would never have you refinance with me, because even if you're saving $300 a month, I don't know, in that conversation, maybe it makes sense for whatever reason, and you break even in 1 year. But this scenario, you're probably in the first 5 years saving $20,000 in interest. So let's just use that, the 5-year snapshot. $3,000 cost, $20,000 savings. Of course it makes sense. Of course you should do it. And the 5-year snapshot, sometimes even a 2 or 3 year snapshot, is what I look at to cost versus benefit. Because I'm telling you, there's some people that, for whatever reason, their neighbors got a lower rate than they do, or something. So I got people calling me that are in the 3.5 trying to refinance. And I had a guy literally on Friday call me and say, I did the math. If I go from 3.5 to 3.375, I save $140 a month. And granted, it's a big loan amount, so that weighs into it too. The bigger the loan amount, the more that interest savings is going to help you. And that's why all the like generic rules, people say it's got to be a 1% difference, or that's never the case. Because if you've got a $500,000 loan and you're paying $3,000 to refinance it, you go down 0.5% and it can make sense. But also, you could have a $92,000 loan and someone's in a 499, and I'm going to show them, even going to 399 on this little itsy bitsy loan, a lot of those costs are fixed cost. It's not getting cheaper because you've got a smaller loan amount. So, usually you're not going to touch those small loan amounts, because that $3,000 cost is such a huge chunk for that little loan. But anyhow, back to the story I was telling. This guy's trying to justify why he wants to go down 1/8%.
Yeah.
And people's motivations are different. He's got a neighbor or something. He wants to be the same rate as this neighbor or something. And I'm trying to talk him out of it, But what we just went through, hopefully people could follow along on how at least I do it, to try to look at a 5-year snapshot, is what we're doing. But during those conversations, I've had so many in the last few months that I could give you example after example of, that same scenario where somebody says, hey, I want to retire in 20 years. I'd love to have a paid off mortgage. Let's look at that. Okay. You've got 27 years left now. If we go down to 3.25 on a 20-year, that savings in interest, your payment's only going to go up $100. So if you're comfortable with that payment and your goal is to pay it off, let's go move it to a 20-year. Let's go to 3.25, and your payment's going up $100, and you're going to have it paid off 7 years sooner. That's pretty cool. And so, or if you want to save some money, you could do the 30-year, and your payment goes down $400. And what I'm looking at with a lot of people right now, because the 30-year term is so low, that if the 30 and the 20 and even the 15 aren't that different in rate, it's for a lot of people a good idea to have the flexibility. Let's do the 30. And in this scenario where, let's say you've got 27 years left in a 4.5, let's do the 30. And at 3.25, you're saving $400. If you want to, Mark, make your old payment, pay $400 extra per month. And if you did that at the new rate, you would pay off in 21 years and 9 months. So you'd essentially have a 22-year loan, but you have the flexibility. If something comes up next year, wife gets laid off or something, you can pay that new lowered payment. It's $400 less per month. But if you want to pay extra, you can turn it into whatever term you want. And that is probably the advice that people miss out on from somebody who's given them good, honest advice is, let's say you've got a 3.625, and you call me and say, but I want to move into a 15-year loan because I want to get this thing paid off quick. If I'm looking at 15-year rates and they're not that much lower, the good advice that you should be getting is, hey, I could take you from a 3.625 to a 3% on a 15-year, but why don't you just pay $260 extra, skip all the refinance, skip fees, and just pay the thing off in 15 years. You can take any loan you have and turn it into whatever term you want. There's cool amortization schedule, calculators on the internet. And so that's something that I get disappointed when you see people get talked into something that just only benefits the salesperson, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people too, I go, listen, if you come to me and I tell you the refinance doesn't make sense and I explain why, hopefully you understand why I'm explaining why. But if not, know that I get paid if I do a deal. So if I tell you it's not a deal, you know that opinion is legit because it's counter to what pays me. So there's that. I don't know if you have other things that you were talking about, but I put down some notes, things I want to talk about. That no cost mortgage was one of them, because that's something you see everywhere. People call me, hey, do you have that no cost mortgage? And I love that I've got a really good database of clients who like and trust me. They know that I'm not going to BS them. I'm going to give them good, honest advice. So they call me and say, hey, I got this in the mail. What does this mean? What am I not understanding about this? Because 2.875 30-year fixed, people get the craziest mail. I mean, I've got mortgages on properties I own, so I get these same mailers and I keep them sometimes. Sometimes I call it, to be quite honest, just F with the people that work in these call centers.
Nice.
So I want to get some feedback on what the heck these people are selling. But if you're a homeowner and you're getting mailers, know a couple things. One, it's a blanket template that goes to everybody. It's not a special offer that's made for Mark M. Hey, Mark, based on your mortgage with blah, blah, blah mortgage company, they're not affiliated with them. They just put that on there to make it look legitimate. You're eligible. You qualify for taking money out, or, we can get you $84,000, or we've got a 30-year at 2.875, and then, there's asterisks. You flip it over, and I do that because I'm in the business, and I'm looking for, okay, if you've got an 800 credit score, if your loan to value is 50%, so you owe 400, but it's worth 800, and if you pay 2.5 points, then you get the 2.875. And so people call me and like, hey, is this legit? Well, based on that small criteria, that small net, it's legit. And even if you spit in that small net, I'm going to tell you, hey, paying 2.5 points on a $400,000 loan, a point is 1% of the loan amount. So 2.5 points is $10,000. So I'm going to tell that same person, hey, that 2.875 was a snazzy rate, right? You saw that in the mail and it caught your attention. You might even have called somebody. But I'm going to show you why I am going to sell you a 3.25 at 0 points. And then you put that next to the 2.875, that's $10,000, 2.5 points. And my deal is light years better. Because let's say 2.875 and 3.25 are $65 difference in payment. Well, if you pay $10,000, how many $65 a month are you going to have to save? I could do some rough math and we'll call it like 150. It's going to be, a 12.5 year break even. You're not going to be in that loan for 12.5 years is what the stats say. And even if you are, $65 a month savings 12 years from now, gas might be $65 a gallon. I don't know. We'll see if we inflationary or deflationary in the next 5 years. That's a whole nother podcast.
Total other podcast. A friend of mine was like, I just bought a Tesla and gas is down to like $2 a gallon. I was laughing about it. But okay. So getting back to this, so like someone sees something in the mail and they kind of, and that's another thing too. And this is something that's really, really important. When you work with just like a company, and it's kind of like, you know, just a big company out there, and you're trying to get into a house and you buy a house. I mean, you kind of are still stuck with not having that relationship after the fact a little bit. Someone like Matt, you know what I mean? Someone local, you tend to build that relationship, build that trust, and they kind of stick with you. Like, I'm sure, Matt, you've reached out to some clients who you probably like, and you said, hey, look, you know, this is a great time to refinance. The rates are low. And this is what kind of like a local lender, the personal touch comes into play a little bit, because they've already gone with you on one deal. So you trust them. And you someone like Matt, you're like, you know, Matt did right by me. I was totally happy with the way Matt performed for me. And so when he calls you up the next time and he goes, hey, guess what, guys, we put you into a 4 or 5, or let's say 5%. And now rates are fantastic. I looked over your file. If your job stayed the same and all this kind of stuff, we could probably get you into a 3.25. Like, that is kind of one of the benefits also with working with someone you trust, local lender, and someone that has kind of your back. You know what I mean? Like someone like Matt. I'm sure you've reached out to people and said, hey, look, this is the prime time.
Oh,
this is where we got to go. Yeah,
we've got all kinds of cool stuff at a certain lender. Anything I submit where all their info's in there, I've got stuff set automatically, where if this specific scenario goes down 3/4 of a point, it's going to alert the buyer, it's going to alert me. You know, I've got a large database, and so for me to keep track of every single person individually, I've got the help of software and systems, right? I also just recently invested in a software called HomeBot, where all my past clients have access to a monthly news digest. Gives them information on their home value. It gives them cool calculators, like I was talking about with paying extra towards the principal, what it would look like, what are current rates, what would a 15 or 20 year look like. So they can mess with all that stuff, and then they just press a button if they say, hey, I want to ask Matt about this. And so that kind of stuff, for sure, like you said, it's cool to have somebody in your corner. And when rates went down this year, I looked at Q1 of 2019 and said, for that 3-month period, rates were 1% higher than they are now. Almost anybody I did in those 90 days would benefit from a refinance. And so, you know, I sent out a blast to them and just said, hey, let's look at it. There's no harm in looking at it. And one thing I'll say about refinance, this is a conversation I've had a lot lately. One, rates change on a daily basis. So I had early March 2nd to March 6th, that week, super low rates. The mortgage market's more volatile than it's ever been, and rates went bananas for the rest of March, and we didn't see those low rates again. Then rates started to come down, you know, the middle of April, and I felt like, as a mortgage originator, mortgage professional that cares about his clients, I don't want my clients to miss out. Because so a lot of those people I talked to early March that didn't get back to me for 3 weeks, I felt like I'd let them down. Like, I'm sorry. I know that we looked at some stuff you had to kind of figure out, and you weren't sure if you wanted to refinance. And so I've tried to put things in place where we could act faster. I could help them make decisions about if it made sense. So for one, I've got a refinance rate watch list where I've got John Smith, currently 399, looking for a 3.125, you know, what term he's looking for, and, you know, wants that 3.125 at 0 points and a 30-year term, things like that, so that we could be ready to say, hey, what we were looking for is now available. Let's make it happen. And even a step further with some people I'm working with, where they say, hey, listen, I know that it doesn't make sense necessarily right now, but I want to be ready when it does. What can I do to be ready? And I'll send them a list. Get us, you know, basically everything we need. If we've done business with them in the past, it might just be, we need your 19 W-2, a month of pay stubs, and your latest mortgage statement. And with that stuff, if we see rates come to a point where you can benefit, we submit it all, we get disclosures out to you. Something that's really important that people don't understand is they're not tied to anything. they're not committed to this refinance until they sign those final loan docs with the notary. So I've told a lot of people, listen, I would be happy to, you know, some folks were in discussions, and they say, well, I feel like it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Let me think about it, or let me talk to my husband, or let me do this or that, and I'll get back to you next week. If it's something where, I mean, sometimes I lose sleep over it. Like, I have no idea why this person's going to save $450 a month. Like, why are they not, you know,
Yeah.
they should be running to figure out how they can get the stuff uploaded and over as quick as possible, lock this in.
Yeah.
But what I've told people, and I think this helps, is I go, listen, I know this deal makes sense, and I'll send you over some estimates. We'll put together stuff on our side, but rather than I send you something, you review it, you talk to your husband, you send it back, you know, a little bit of back and forth. Why don't we, since we've done a loan for you before, get what we need, send out disclosures, and those are true, you know, that's a lot better than me guesstimating on what title, what all this stuff's going to be. You know, I can
Right.
send over guesstimates close, send out the true disclosures. You can sign those disclosures. We can proceed. We can get as far as you want to get. If for whatever reason, what you see on those disclosures doesn't make sense, or you don't want to proceed, just tell me. No, thanks. We've chose. And really, I've had a half a dozen this year that, I mean, and to be quite honest, stuff that made a lot of sense, like $400 a month savings, you know, for personal reasons, we're going to hold off for now. And I'm not a high pressure salesman. You tell me you want to hold off for personal reasons, that's your thing. You know, sometimes I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, what kind of personal reasons somebody wants to spend an extra $450 a month, send that to Wells Fargo. But, you know, whatever it is, you know, there's people get caught up on that quite a bit. And that's why I wanted to make a point of it, because, you know, people will get initial disclosures, say, hey, Matt, I don't know, we don't want to sign this for this reason or that reason. And I say, hey, listen, you could sign it. You're not committed to anything. We can get all the way to the end, you know, and really all this like preparing and getting disclosures out, it's just work for me and my team that we do for free. So if you decide against it, no harm, no foul. But what happens is we avoid if rates start to trend back up. And I never use rates moving or changing as a way to sell, but kind of the theme lately has been, if you like it, lock it, because things not in the last 2 weeks, I would say, you know, we've got a more stable mortgage market now, but in March it was mayhem, dude. It was moving like crazy.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. It was kind of like people were naming their rate, and you're like, if it goes to that, I'm going to lock it in for you. Things were switching during the course of the day. Yeah, no, it was, your business.
It was wild. And it was also a time where lenders were so busy with refinance that they were forcing rates up to kind of slow down, throttle back how much they were receiving. And so what I saw, because it's as a broker, I'm working with 55 different banks, and so I've got stuff submitted at 5 different places. What I saw was kind of interesting, and it took me a while to figure out what they were doing. They would open up at a good price, and I'd price a few different lenders, and then in the afternoon rates would be worse. And it made sense if market was getting worse, that things were getting worse. But then you would follow like the market on a third party app, and you'd say like the mortgage market, like mortgage bonds are up today or down today, but like the rate sheets aren't following that. And then I figured out they would basically open up, and whatever the amount of loans they wanted for the day, once they got to that, they jack rates up to kind of get people like, okay, we've got our $10,000, you know, quota, or 10,000 loan quota for the day, and they quit, you know. So interesting times, man. And that's, you know, beyond the scope of this call, but nonetheless.
It's an interesting time, man. You know, like I said, for, you know, and that's kind of why I want to talk a little bit about the mortgage refinance, you know, kind of going over that stuff, because it's like, a lot of people don't know. They see a rate, they all of a sudden assume it's almost like a credit card where they can just switch it over and the rates change. What other things would you say are little things that you want to mention about this?
I wrote some notes down because there's some definite, like, this is a reason to refinance, and then other reasons where you shouldn't refinance, or, you know, these things kind of get figured out during the discovery phase, the talk phase, where I'm talking to somebody about their goals. Because something I read as I was looking at refinance stuff online was a reason not to, and this one resonated with me, like paying off your home faster when neglecting other financial goals. Because I see that. I see somebody that's like, listen, I want that 15-year term, 2.625, and they're all stoked to get that super low interest rate and like break their back with that bigger payment on a 15-year loan when they've got $62,000 in credit card debt with an 18% balance. And what I'd want to tell that person is, hey, listen, like pay $1,500 less on your mortgage payment because your 30-year rate is still smoking. 30-year rate's still in the low threes, but pay off this credit card debt in the next 3 years, have an aggressive plan for paying $2,000 a month towards that. And, worry about the house later because, the mortgage interest is deductible on your taxes and all that. And so I think, what it is I've really high level mortgage advisors realize that they're a debt advisor. You've got your financial advisor who's advising you on your assets and how to best use your assets. And a good mortgage professional is your debt advisor. Your mortgage is your biggest debt. And we're trying to figure out how in the whole picture, because everybody's different. I don't just stand on the corner. I mean, I don't, think that the same mortgage is right for everybody. 30-year fixed at this rate, 20 years at this rate, 15 years at this rate, come talk to me. I'm going to get you a great mortgage. It really is. It's super scenario dependent. And depending on the client, we got to figure out what's best for you and your financial goals. And really, I feel like I have a good enough grasp where I'm giving people really solid advice, where I can get them to think, okay, oh yeah, that makes sense, and at first they thought they wanted something, but then through talking about it, hey, listen, if this is your goal, why don't you do this? And then some people, I'm in this house, I'd love to lower my rate. I'd really, and they think that they want to shorten the term and pay it off quicker. But then they tell me that in 5 years, they're going to move out and it's going to be a rental. And I go, well, hey, like if it's going to be a rental, let's do a 30-year, get you into a $1,600 payment. No one's going to stop you. There's no prepayment penalties. Pay an extra $500 a month on this and pay it down more aggressively. But then when it becomes a rental, you're going to want to have cash flow. So then it's renting for $2,200. You pay the $1,500 payment and get $700 a month in cash flow, or continue to, pay $2,000 a month and pay it off quicker. But, don't put it into a 15-year, pay $2,500 a month and then be stuck where if it becomes a rental, it's cash flow negative, or you're calling me again to refinance back into a 30.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it costs. And that's why too, a good mortgage advisor is trying to set you up in the best mortgage for the long term. A lot of people I write mortgages for, I realize like, holy cow, I'm writing you at a 3.25 on a 30-year. It's going to take a life event for you to get out of this mortgage. It's going to take it's going to take you selling the house. It's going to take you, absolutely needing cash to do a cash out refinance or something. But, I'm writing a lot of mortgages that are long-term mortgages. People are going to stay in these for a long time. And that's how it should be, because ideally, you're not refinancing every couple years. And, to be completely straightforward, I've got plenty of clients that, at the snapshot in time, it made a lot of sense. They were going from the 5.5 to the 4.75, and then the 4.75 to the 3.5, or they wanted to go from a 30 to a 20 and decided, hey, you know what? I've got to pull cash out and go back to a 30. But, you don't necessarily want to refinance because it does cost. And most of these things, when we're looking at break even, you're going to have, if you're doing a refinance that makes sense, it's going to pay for itself within the first couple of years. But the longer you stay in it, the more worthwhile it is. And so for somebody who's, saving $4,000 a year in interest, and then you stay in that loan for 6 years, it's more beneficial. So it's a lot of variables. I think that's something to consider, that, it's not just one size fits all when it comes to the mortgage you get when you're buying a house or the mortgage you get when you're refinancing.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of the thing about the mortgage too is like, don't get caught up into the hype of the numbers right away. You know what I mean? You don't know if that you qualify for that. Gather the paperwork that you did when you're first getting your loan. Like, truthfully, if you worked with Matt, he's probably got the stuff on file, just needs to be updated. And then figure out your goals, like Matt was saying. Is it something, do you want to pay it off quicker? Do you want to have more or less of a payment? What are you comfortable with? And then, like, when you work with Matt, let him run the numbers, figure out the scenarios once you tell him your goal, and have him present to you for the most part, right? Say, look,
Yeah.
here are the scenarios. Boom, 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 boom. This is the one I would suggest based on your goals and based on exactly your savings. And I'll tell you why. And then based on that, you can make an educated decision into which way to go. Correct?
Correct. I mean, that's the thing too. Like I talked about being a debt manager, sometimes for shits and giggles, we'll just show somebody different scenarios they haven't even thought about, just so they can see it, right? And I've had plenty, refinances have been raining the last few months. And somebody calls me and says, hey, we're looking at refinancing. And I ask them the questions, what are you looking to do? Looking to pay it off quicker, looking to lower your payment, looking to take cash out, whatever it is. And well, we heard rates are lower. We want to see what makes sense. Send them a 15, a 20, and a 30. They come back to me and go, oh my gosh, if I went to a 20-year, it's only $70 more per month than I'm paying right now. And I've got 28 years left on this mortgage. Great. If you're comfortable with that payment and you'd love to pay it off sooner, let's do it. And, then the cool part is like, hey, listen, like it sounded cool to shave 8 years off the mortgage, only pay that. But look at this. Look at like the 6 figures in interest you saved by paying it off sooner. And, I don't want people to be misled that that's the only goal to have is to pay the least interest, because not everybody can go 20 years or 15 years or 10 years in their mortgage. Some people just don't have the financial ability to do that. But in the whole picture, if it's just like financial advising, man, where it's just like, hey,
Totally.
stick to shoving $500 a month or $1,000 a month into this account. It's going to grow. It's going to serve you later. The same thing can happen with a mortgage. I mean, some of the best advice probably in mortgage has nothing to do with refinancing, has nothing to do with going to mattthemortgageguy.com or giving me a call. It's throw a couple $100 extra at the principal, especially in the beginning where it's, a lot of interest, and watch how much that saves you. There's calculators online. I think on mattthemortgageguy.com, you should be able to find one. But $200 extra a month, and you shave 6 years off your mortgage and save $53,000 in interest. Crazy numbers like that. And it's just like the person who shows you on the financial advisor side, $200 a month saved over 30 years is huge. You just have to have the discipline to do it.
Yep. No, I mean, and definitely like mattthemortgageguy.com, right?
Yes, sir.
That's where you can go find the calculators. Now, here's the thing, guys. We're talking about, the mortgage finance kind of explained, and like, write your comments, your questions. Matt will be answering your questions. So even if you don't want to, and you want to be a little more anonymous, a little bit more mysterious, write your comments down there, your questions about this. If this is something that does interest you, Matt's available to you by phone, by email, text, whatever you need to do. But also put your comments down below for people who are thinking about it. All right, I have a question for you. Write your comments down, guys.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is let me say this real quick, Mark. I'm licensed in California. I can write loans anywhere in California, do them all over California. I give advice worldwide. And I've made plenty of YouTube videos where I've got people calling me from Atlanta, Georgia, people calling me from Florida. Hey, Matt, I just want to get your opinion. And for 5 minutes, I can give somebody really good advice, and it feels good to me. I can't write a loan and I don't get paid anything for it, but it feels really good. Somebody was talking to me about a home equity line that his dad was trying to get at 8%, or someone else was telling me about a loan that Quicken Loans was trying to sell him where there's 3 points in cost. I'm like, run for the friggin' hills, talk to a local broker, don't pay 3 points. It makes no sense. So really anywhere, especially if you're in California where I could help you, call or text me on my cell phone. Text is probably better, and especially if you just can formulate your question, I can just respond to you. But, I get people from YouTube all the time. They're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't think you'd respond, or I didn't think you would answer. 916-529-7600. If I don't answer your question, flame me on YouTube. Say this guy's a fake or a phony.
Nice.
But if I do answer your question, be like, Matt the Mortgage Guy's the best. He talked me out of doing a cash out refinance and explained to me why doing that to pull out $8,000 to pay off credit card bills didn't make sense, because, you know, raising my rate by doing a cash out when I'm already in this great mortgage was a bad idea. Instead, you know, get smart, you know, find a way in your finances to pay off that 8,000 some other way, but don't do a cash out refinance, you know, mess up a good 30-year mortgage because that $8,000 is, you know, doable, you know, pay off on credit card debt some other way. So yeah, that's the kind of good advice that's out there if you seek the right counsel.
There we go. And also Matt, like you said, he's got a YouTube channel with how many videos you have on? Like 200-300 videos or something?
Yeah, I think it's like in the 250 range or something. So we're like neck and neck with subscribers, man. People got to go over and subscribe to me just so I can, you know,
His
beat
channel,
in 2000.
I always point in the wrong direction, something like that. But like, go to Matt's channel, subscribe. Here's the thing about Matt. You need to go to his channel, subscribe, because he's got some amazing information there. And he's been doing all these videos about every single topic that is underneath the sun, as far as like, if you're looking to buy a home. This is where you go to get your questions answered before you even think to yourself, reach out to Matt. He's an awesome guy, as you guys know. Again, guys, tonight we're talking mortgage finance explained. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. Any parting words, Matt?
I don't think so. I just think that, you know, the Geico commercial that's 15 minutes can save you 15%. With mortgage, you know, a 15-minute call could save you 15,000. So you should definitely, if it's not me, I'm fine with that too, but find someone you like and trust. And if you've heard it from a coworker, or you just think to yourself, gosh, I don't know if this 4.25% interest is the best mortgage I'm in, reach out to somebody, get an opinion. I'd be happy to be that person. You know, if you go to mattthemortgageguy.com, there's stuff you can fill out that sends me a little form, and I get back to you. Someone from my team gets back to you. And a lot of the times, you know, it's quick and simple advice. And people who are afraid to reach out to a quote unquote salesperson because they feel like there's going to be a big sale, I'm blessed to be in a position where I've got enough business. I don't have to sell somebody on something that doesn't make sense. And I prove it every single week when 7 out of 10 people that come to me about a refinance, I go, nope, not the time. I'll tell you why. Nope, not the time. I'll tell you why. And I build rapport and trust, because they know if they come back to me and ask the question, I go, yep, this makes a lot of sense. Let's get moving. They know I'm speaking the truth because I've told them no 3 other times.
There we go. I like it. I like it. Like I said, Matt's rock solid, and you know, he kills it. So hit his subscribe to his channel, go to his website, reach out to him. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Mark McDonough, your Sacramento Realtor with Caldwell Banker. Matt, the mortgage guy, the one and only, the most electrifying mortgage broker in Sacramento. We're out of here. Have a good night. Boom.
Thanks, brother. See ya.